Welcome to the Top 1% Men podcast by LGFG Fashion House, where we interview millionaires and billionaires and other men who fit within the top 1% as verifiable by quantifiable metrics such as wealth, physical fitness, and other notable life achievements. On the Top 1% of Men podcast, participation trophies don't count and man buns are not allowed. Did you guys know there's twice as many women on the internet as real life? That's a made-up statistic, but it's pretty funny.
No.
So, guys,
women don't hassle me on the internet. It's dudes.
You know, guys, here with Zuby. Now, if you guys know the Top 1% of Men podcast, the whole point is very simple. We're just talking to men who qualify in the top 1%, not because they say they are, but because they fall under quantifiable metrics that we can actually measure with numbers. So it could be income, financial status, fitness, social media influence. Actually, Zuby has 1.2 million followers on Twitter now?
On Twitter, I use 1.11 million.
That's crazy. That's a lot of followers. And Elon Musk is your first subscriber.
Yeah, he was.
That's an accomplishment in of itself. Yeah. But also you're a rapper that is frequently downloaded on Spotify. You're doing two shows this summer. One is in California, you mentioned, is like rapping. You have 3 speaking engagements next week?
I got 3 next week. And then, many more later in the year.
So I saw you were in South Africa. You then flew to the States. You are here. You then go to Dubai in England. Now you go to Dubai. Yeah. So Zuby, a couple of questions because we want the guys that are watching this to learn from what a top 1% man does. How did you and how do you make your money?
So I first made my money through music, just through album sales. I used to go out on the streets all over the UK, England, Scotland, Wales, everywhere. I used to stand out on the street and sell my CDs. And, in a good day, I'd sell, 30, 40, some days 50 plus CDs in a day. And then I started doing pop-up shops in 2014 to 2018. I made most of my money in shopping malls, so I was still selling my CDs and then also my t-shirts, hats, hoodies. I used to have my own brand of headphones, which I used to sell there as well. 2019 was a big transitional year for me. So that was the year I first went viral with, identifying as a woman and breaking the British Women's Deadlift record, which put me on a lot of people's radar.
Right.
But that was also the year that I started my podcast, Real Talk with Zuby. I wrote and released my first book, Strong Advice, Zuby's Guide to Fitness for Everybody. And to be honest, the first real money I made, first time I made money, I was like, oh, cool, this is actually a lot of money, was actually through my ebook. It was actually through my fitness book. That was the first thing where I was like, wow, why did I not write a book earlier?
Okay.
And then fast forward 4 more years, I've started doing a lot more speaking engagements over the years, all around the world at this point. I've released a second book, children's book called The Candy Calamity, which is done pretty well. I'm working on my 3rd book right now, which is going to blow the first 2 out the water.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
You used to make money selling CDs on the street, and now you're writing books. Do you think that, because I'm sure a lot of guys listening to this are going to be like, I'm just going to skip the selling on the streets part and go write a book and make $1 million. Yeah. But do you think you could have skipped that step?
No, not in terms of me doing all the stuff that I have now, because being out there on the street, I did that for over a decade, on and off. It wasn't full-time for a decade, but I've met over 500,000 people in the real world. When you've met and spoken to 500,000 people, if you think of the through line between everything I do, I'm a communicator.
Yeah.
That's what I am. Whether I'm rapping, I'm tweeting, I'm public speaking, I'm podcasting, I'm being interviewed, I'm writing a book, it's all communication.
Yes.
So if there's one thing that threads together all the things I do, I'd say that I'm very, very proficient at communicating ideas. I'm very good with words, and that's the through line. That's the through line through it all. So I wouldn't have developed that skill, especially interpersonally, had I not gone through that stage of just being out there talking to people all the time. I know you used to sell door to door.
Sure.
You get used to dealing with the rejection. You deal with the positive, deal with the negative. Just understanding human psychology. And so you can't bypass that. You can't just read a book on human psychology.
No, you have to suffer.
No, you've got to suffer. You've got to take the hits. You've got to get the wins, take the L's.
Yeah.
And that set me up very well for everything I do and will do in the future.
Yeah, the stat on that is about the average human in their lifetime interacts with about 2,000 to 3,000 people. That's the average stat. And so if you're doing 500,000, that completely blows that. Obviously, you become more socially intelligent, but the reason, it's like people are like, oh, I'm just going to do that stuff he's doing now and be successful. People come to me like, I'm going to be a CEO. It's like, no, you can't. Why? Because you're not socially intelligent enough. What does that mean? It means you have very few opportunities to actually recognize when a switch can be pushed and then push that switch correctly.
Yeah.
And the reason you recognize that is because you've seen that switch 100,000 times.
Exactly.
And until you've seen it, you won't recognize it. And if you even recognize it, you won't know how to hit it correctly. So there's a social intelligence element. Here's an interesting question for you. One of the questions I will ask a lot of guys on this podcast is, how does university or higher education play into your success? We've got some guys that dropped out of university. We've got some guys that never went. You actually finished a computer science degree at Oxford.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what's that about?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of people question why I'd go to somewhere like Oxford and do computer science and then go on and become a rapper and an entrepreneur. I think firstly, university, if you're going to go, it's to open doors, not to close existing ones. In terms of the practical application, it's pretty subtle. It's not direct. I think the best thing I got from university is, number one, my course was hard. It was difficult. I found school easy. All through school, in Saudi Arabia, in the UK, school was always easy for me. I'm a smart guy, I'm academic. When I got to Oxford, that was the first time I was genuinely intellectually challenged, surrounded by incredibly smart people. Computer science is a hard subject.
Sure.
Computer science at Oxford is even harder. So, I got, mentally, it was hard. I was like, holy crap, like I've been cruising.
Yeah, it's a big jump.
And now this is genuinely difficult. So getting used to that and adapting to that level of discomfort, that was important. I think for some people maybe they get that earlier, but for me it wasn't until university. But problem solving, I'd say, is the main thing. Both being in that environment and specifically doing a subject like computer science, where you're right or you're wrong. It's not
there's really not. Yeah, the program either compiles or it doesn't.
It works or it doesn't.
Yeah.
You learn to think I'm very much a problem solver.
Okay.
I think a lot of times, in life you're going to deal with all sorts of problems. In every single avenue of life, you're going to deal with problems. And we see that, there are people who don't know how to deal with that. They break down, they play victim, they even create problems when problems don't exist.
Right.
They're not problem solvers. Right, you give them the slightest obstacle, let alone a big obstacle, and they're crippled by it. Right, they don't know what to do. Whereas there's other people, whatever is thrown at them, they're at least wired to think of solutions. Right, it's like, okay, here's an obstacle. Some people are like, oh, there's an obstacle, and they stop.
Yeah.
I can't move forward. There's an obstacle here. Hey, can someone come and move this boulder out of my way so that I can continue? It might not even be a boulder. It might be a pebble. And they
might be a made-up pebble.
Yeah, right. They could have just, it could be a pebble identifying as a boulder, and they're just like staring at it like, hey, I can't get past this thing. Whereas there's other people that are immediately, oh, okay, or well, maybe there's another route, or maybe I can do something to move this boulder. And that's how you have to think in life if you want to be successful, because there will always be problems. There's the ones you can kind of predict. There's the ones that everyone experiences. There's things that are unique to you. There's things that are completely unpredictable, and it just doesn't go your way. Something goes wrong. It happens every day to some degree. And in your career, I mean, if you're going to try to do something that's hard, by definition, most people are not able to do it or will not do it. Right?
Or just unwilling to do it.
Yeah, they're unwilling.
Exactly,
yeah, it's hard. It doesn't. This could be going to the gym and getting in great shape. Why are most people not in great shape? Because it's hard, right? Becoming a millionaire. Why are most people not millionaires? It's hard, right? It's hard. By definition, some things are just difficult, and the majority of people are not going to rise to the challenge. So if you're someone who is ambitious in any of these regards or in multiple fields, you have to be willing to take more punishment and go through more hassle and solve more problems than the average person is willing to deal with, right? To be the top 1% of anything, unless you're just extraordinarily talented, if it's something that takes effort, by definition, you need to put in a level of effort or have a level of skill, talent, whatever, more than the other 99% of people.
I don't think there's anybody that's talented enough in any field to become the 1% in that field. And I've had this conversation with I remember I went up for a golf game once with the captain of an NHL team in Canada. And it was just me and him, and we were golfing. And he goes, Dimitry, and this guy actually won a major award. He was a defenseman, so he won the Norris Trophy as a top defenseman in the league. He goes, there's lots of guys in the minors that are more talented than me. He goes, and it's killing them. They don't have the work ethic and the discipline to get to the level I've gotten to. And I know they're more talented, and they know they're more talented. Yeah. But I outwork them. And the top 1%, it's like, yeah, you can probably be talented enough to get the top 20%. But to get to the top 1%, the competition is so fierce and cutthroat. You have to be so much more resilient, so much more persistent, and so much more one of the stories, well, you just said about like going to computer science. I remember my first computer science course at university. It kicked my butt.
It was hard.
I was shocked because I'd never studied. I'd never taken homework home. I just did my work and it was great. And then I get in there and I'm like, oh my God, like this is really, really hard. And for me, it was like, do I have the discipline to persevere through this? That was the question. It wasn't, can I figure it out? It was like, can I persist enough?
Yeah.
Zuby, would you recommend today? Would you, because today is not like 20 years ago when you and I went to university, which is kind of what it was 15 years ago. Like today, would you recommend in 2023 for a 20-year-old, 19-year-old guy to go to university?
It completely depends. There's nuance to this answer. I've thought this through quite a lot, and I think there are 3 circumstances where you should go to university.
Okay.
Right? And I think that the more of these 3 that you meet, then the more you should. Number 1 is if you are going to go into a field where you absolutely need a degree.
Well, like doctor or engineer,
yes, you want to
lawyer.
be a doctor, you want to be an engineer, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be, right? You're not becoming a surgeon without a medical degree.
Not a legal one, as I found out on that fateful day in 2011. I'm just kidding.
Go to university and get your degree, right? So that's the first one. The second one I would say is if you can go without incurring a cost.
Okay.
A financial cost.
So like a scholarship or athletic.
You've got a scholarship, your parents are going to pay your way through, whatever, then the opportunity cost and the financial cost is much, much lower. So if you don't, if you're 18 years old and you're not sure what to do and you can go to college for free, then
might as well,
you may as well go. It's all upside.
Not like the 100K debt.
Man, what was even the third one? I'd also say, I think the third one would be if you are. This is kind of secondary to the first 2, but I'd say like if you're just highly academic, and maybe you're not 100% sure what job or vocation you want to go into, but you're just very, very clever. And I'd also caveat this by saying, and you're going to do a STEM degree.
I was about to say, you're going to sound lesbian dance theory.
You're going to study something that is valuable, right? So maybe you don't know exactly what you want to do, but you're very smart, you're very academic, and you want to study computer science or engineering or mathematics or something. You might not know exactly what you'll do with that mathematics degree, but you'll have it in your pocket. I'd say those are kind of the 3 situations. I'd say if you don't meet any of those, don't go.
Yeah, there's one thing where I think growing up in like late 90s, early 2000s, as I did, the sort of thinking about how to, if you want to become successful, you go to university and you follow that linear system. And what the problem with that was, there are a lot of guys and gals I know now that might be 35 or 40 years old, and they did everything right and their life sucks. And that's a painful thing. So, well, I did everything right.
Yeah, well, the equation has changed now, right? Because the cost of a degree has gone up, and whilst the value of a degree has gone down. Right? So the opportunity cost and the financial cost is not the same as even when I was in university. I was in university 2004 to 2007, which doesn't sound like that long ago.
No, the world has changed completely.
But in that time, I mean, here in the UK, the cost of a degree has more than tripled in that time frame. And like I said, the number of opportunities and options to educate yourself for cheap or for free has massively increased. Right? So you don't need to go to university to get that same knowledge. And also, the overall value of the average degree has also dropped. So I think a lot of people in the older generation especially, I mean, here in the UK, I mean, university used to be taxpayer funded, right? Kind of like it is in places like Sweden, I believe. So that's how it used to be in the UK. So there was no financial cost up front. The value of a degree at that time was generally higher, and there were less nonsense degrees going around. Like if you were going to go, you were going to study something academic, not football studies or lesbian studies or
lesbian football studies. That's a double major.
So whatever nonsense that they're putting out there.
Right.
So the math has changed, and I think that people need to recognize that and adapt with the times. I'm not going to come out here and say, going to university is stupid. No one should go to university, because that's asinine. That's a ridiculous thing to say. But I think it's also equally asinine to say that everybody should go to university, right? Some people are not academic at all. Some people are, it's going to put them in a massive financial hole. And a lot of people, they're going to go and study something that's pointless at a university that's not that great anyway. So there's no point. You're just wasting 3 to 4 years, and there's a massive opportunity cost to that.
So let's just cut to the which one is it? Which one set you up for success more? Your computer science degree from Oxford or your years of selling CDs on the streets?
Surprisingly, I'd say it might be equal.
Okay.
I'd say it might be equal. I lean more towards the latter, but there is a lot that I did gain from university, and even I worked in the corporate world for 3 years, and there is a lot that I gained from that. And one of those things actually is just professionalism, right? Most musicians, most creative people, a lot of entrepreneurs are very unprofessional.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
They don't know how to write a proper email.
Yep.
Even the way they talk and communicate. Like
Yep.
if you've ever watched the interview with most rappers, like they can't string sentences together very well. Like they're not articulate. They're late for people. So they're just not professional.
Well, that's actually really interesting. I want to pause. That's so
go ahead.
important, young guys. Like, be on time. Like, just the tiny little things
be
of like,
professional.
just like put yourself together well. Like, wear clothing that's at least like a little bit above of where you are, so you have something to aim towards. That's something that I coach young guys in our company. It's so important.
Yeah. And you run a suit company, so you know this, right? Appearance does matter.
Yeah.
Whether or not you think people should, people will judge you by your appearance.
Absolutely.
If you say you don't, if anyone out there says they don't judge someone to some degree based on their appearance, they're an absolute liar. Of course you do. And you know it yourself, because if you didn't, you'd go to a job interview dressed in your pajamas. But
Right.
you wouldn't do that because you know they're not going to take you seriously if you go dressed in your pajamas, right? So your grooming, your body, your physical fitness, the clothes that you wear, you don't need to be like some fashionista or
Right,
go
of
and
course.
spend ridiculous amounts of money on
Sure.
all this stuff. But, okay.
It's kind of more baller when there are helicopters in the back.
The choppers.
You're talking about, the importance of being a professional. One of the things about you that's really fascinating is you're really big into working out. You're in the gym all the time. You've probably been going to the gym for like 20 years nonstop.
Yeah, 20 years. Yeah.
Why is that so important for you? Why is that so important for young guys?
Well, firstly, your physical health is incredibly important. You only get one body.
Yeah.
Right? And something that's crazy about the world is so many people treat their material goods, their items, their car, their clothes, their sneakers, whatever, they treat them better than they treat their own body. And you've got one body, it's got to last you your entire lifetime. Also, your mental, physical, and spiritual health are all integrated, right? People talk about mental health as if it's totally separate from physical health. It's not, right? These things are connected. Your body is one. So if you're not in decent physical shape, you're not going to be performing optimally in any other area. You're not even going to have a lot of energy to travel around and meet people and do this and do that.
True.
A lot of people have no energy because they don't have energy to work out because they don't work out, right? On top of that, of course, it builds your confidence. Of course, it makes you physically more attractive and better looking. It's all upside. There's no advantage to being weak compared to being strong. There's no advantage to being out of shape rather than being in shape. Like if you can't run a mile, it's better to be able to run a mile or run 5 miles than not to be able to, or to gas out when you go upstairs. It's all upside. And then I'd also say that what it takes to get your body in shape, if you apply that same mentality and those same traits, discipline, consistency, planning, problem solving, all of that stuff, if you can apply that to any other dimension, you will become successful in that dimension because it's the same skills, it's the same perseverance, it's the same discipline, dedication.
Yeah, just doing things you have to do, but you don't always want to.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you know what works, then you don't want to do it, but you got to do it anyways.
Yeah, just do it. And if you apply that to other aspects of life, your work, your business, if you're an entrepreneur, whether you're employed, self-employed, whatever it is, if you apply it to relationships, if you apply it to just how you treat other people, whatever dimension, it's the same traits that make people successful across various fields.
Yeah.
And again, it will give you opportunities that you may not even potentially think about, right? Like you walk around in your body all day long, all day, every day. If I'm sitting here and I'm like 400 pounds and my belly is sticking out and I've got man boobs and this and that, like it gives off a different vibe.
It's different
right?
energy. You also attract a different energy.
It's very different. Whereas people can see, okay, like this person, they're in shape, they're well put together, whatever.
Yeah.
The things that people will presume about you are going to be more positive.
Sure,
right?
absolutely.
And this is not saying, again, this is just me stating reality.
Yep.
I'm not saying that, people should judge books, judge individuals just based on how they look or this or this, because people like to misconstrue things. I'm just saying that human beings, we are visual creatures. The first thing you see about a person is literally what they look like.
Yes.
You very quickly see how tall are they? What does their face look like? Are they well groomed? What are they dressing? Like we see all that stuff immediately. So why not do your best to create a positive or at least a neutral impression?
So what are you wearing? Show me that jacket.
This jacket right here. So this is the Twitter special. This is the Elon Musk bomber jacket right here. So this is brand new. I just got this today.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's a dope color, kind of baby blue. It's Twitter blue.
All right, I wasn't doing this to plug us. I do have one more question. Okay, one of the things I actually had the interesting experience last time I saw you in person of having dinner with your family.
Yeah.
Like with your parents, and they were telling, I think you have 4 siblings. You're one of 5, is it?
Yeah, I'm one of 5.
And there's like a doctor, a couple doctors, there's a lawyer, like they're really like educated, successful.
No lawyers.
No lawyers. Oh, thank goodness.
Doctor, banker, PR.
Yeah, like very successful, very successful family. And the point to that is, I know that you will say that family has been really important in building your foundation, and not everybody is as fortunate as some of us are that our parents were together, or that you have other family members that hold you accountable and build you up. That's the exception. That's not the rule.
Yeah.
But as you think about, like, as you're in your mid-30s right now, and as you're moving forward in life, eventually I know you want to have kids, you want to build a family. Eventually.
Yeah.
Why is that important for you? Like, what aspect do you see your family playing for you, and how do you see yourself building that going forward, so that young guys watching, what kind of philosophy should they be thinking about building their own family in the future?
Well, I think the first thing is that, if you opt to not have children, you are breaking a genetic chain that has been going on forever. Like, if you choose to be a genetic dead end, if you want to do that, that's on you.
Yeah.
But I would say that as a species, if there's something that is like the most primary objective of life, it is to reproduce.
Yes.
Right? This is the truth of every species.
Sure.
It goes even beyond just animals, right? Like reproduction. So that is, for anyone out there who's thinking, even when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I also went through my phase of, maybe I won't have kids and I'll just be a bachelor for life and stack up my cash and whatever. Horrible idea. Maybe there's like 2-3% of people who will be genuinely happy with that, but it's an exception. I don't speak based on exceptions. But in terms of the importance of family, in terms of my own parents and the way that I was raised, the values that they have instilled, the support, the education, the love, the kindness, all of that stuff has helped to form who I am.
Yeah.
And that is something I absolutely will pass down to my future children, right? Even with everything I do is based around trying to positively inspire and motivate other people, right? That's always been my mission. And something that I think is really cool with what I'm doing now and the level I'm hitting now is I've noticed like about half my audience is older than me and about half my audience is younger. And I think that's actually really cool. That's really cool. Because when I was just doing music, when I was just a rapper, all my audience was kind of like, I don't know, 12 to 25, something like that. It was, just very much younger. But now it's like, cool, I can do something and be doing things in the world that such a broad range of people can learn from and take something positive from. And I think look, in this life, there's so much negativity. Yeah. People are constantly being bombarded with fear and with outrage and with discouraging messages and demoralization messages and all that stuff. And we need more people in all dimensions 100%. on the opposite side of that. Otherwise, people just get stuck in this doom loop. And that's a big reason why so many people are just in this fear state where they just think that everything is gonna fail, right? No one wants to become a bad statistic, right? And we're seeing this, right? There's people who there are literally millions of people in my generation who don't want to have kids, and they'll say, oh, it's because they're afraid of failure, or they think, oh, I don't want to build, the world is going so crazy, I don't want to build it. Who wants to raise a child in this world?
That's a stupid excuse, and it's just not confronting the possibility of failure. That's just being weak.
Yes, exactly, right? Because you can't live. Statistics are important, but average statistics only apply to you if you're average in that department, right? And if you go more granular on any statistic, it often tells you a very different picture.
Absolutely.
Right? So if you just read that, I don't know, 90% of podcasts fail, or 90% of businesses fail, or 90% are, X percent of people can't do it. It's like, well, that's just like, if you just, everybody.
Right.
Right? But if you're actually like dedicated and you think about this thing and you apply yourself and you whatever, then the numbers are going to look very different from you. So I think a level of self-awareness is knowing when you are the norm and knowing when you are the exception.
Well,
I think that's true self-awareness, because we all have things that we're exceptional in and then things that we're average at.
Sure.
And that's totally fine. No one is exceptional in every single dimension of life. It's not possible.
Absolutely.
Right? We're actually probably average in most things, because we don't even do most things. But you can be incredibly successful by being exceptional in like one or two dimensions. You don't need to be, no one is a top doctor and a top chef and a top lawyer and a top athlete and a top podcaster and a top, no, you get in where you fit in, and that's how life goes.
Yeah, man. One thing I think about that when people are like, I don't want to have kids, I'm like, that's very selfish. Your forefathers had to fight massive wars to defend their families, to fight for their country, whatever it was, right?
I'm also like, if you want to be a genetic dead end, go ahead. I won't be.
Oh, that's a fair way to, sure, yeah.
I'm pro liberty, man. Like if someone decides that, but I think that, especially for young people, and I know this because I've been there, right? I'm 36 years old right now. I'm not a fogey, but I'm not a 20-year-old now either. And I think a lot of young people, they only think about the first half of their life. They only think about life up until about 40, maybe 45. And they don't think, okay, what am I going to do between 45 and 90? And what's going to give me joy and contentedness and make me fat? And the most obvious answer to this is your family.
Ice cream's number 2.
No, because once you're financially stable, then you'll quickly learn that, like, okay, cool, that's cool, but what do? You just keep stacking cash in your 50s and your 60s? It's like, for what? Like, you've got your house, you've got your car, like, you can go on vacation. You don't need, like, what next? And the thing is, as well, I think about this stuff a lot, because if you don't have children, also means you're also signing up to not have grandchildren.
Yeah.
Right? You're cutting off that whole, like, you've got there's a whole family dynamic.
Yeah.
And it's not like just a one-to-one thing. So you're just closing off that entire potential of your life. And I think that when you're 18 or 20, it's very easy to be like, oh, okay, yeah, actually, I don't want that. Whether you're a man or a woman, yeah, you know what, I don't want that. It looks hard. It's whatever. Like, I don't need to do that. That's not me. But people will be surprised by how much their mindset might shift, in the 10, 15 years. So I think it's just something for people to be aware of and be very honest about, not just go with societal programming or what nonsense you're seeing on the internet or whatever, and really think about it.
Yeah, I see people are like, I don't want to have kids because I love the planet. I'm like, no, you don't want to have kids because you hate the planet. That's actually why, so it's like, you're wrong, right? It's like, you're just misinterpreting.
Again, man, I'm speaking as someone who does not have any kids yet.
Right.
But it's like, like I said, people can make their choices. I'm not one of these postmodernists. I do think some things are better than other things.
Right.
And I think, look, there will be exceptional people. There will be exceptions out there. Most men and women in this world want to and will have children.
Sure.
Right? And most people also who don't have children, who are, 50 years plus, that wasn't something that they planned. Right? Of course, you have fertility issues, but you have people who just run the clock out. Right? And yeah, I just think it's. I think this is one of those things where I think there are many issues where I think, for all our advancements, modern society is kind of dumber than previous generations.
Yeah.
Because now, you have to sit down and listen to podcasts about this stuff and read books. It was just common sense. It was just common sense to people in the past, like, yeah, of course you do this, you do that, you do that, like, obviously. Now it's like, do children need fathers? Oh, what about if we do this? Actually, how many genders are there? Is a man really a man? Like, people are questioning the most stupid things that are just obvious. Your ancestors would have just like slapped you in the face and been like, dude, like, what are you doing? How are you even pontificating
Life got very comfortable
on this issue? Yeah, but it'll get very uncomfortable if it gets too comfortable.
Yeah.
That's the irony of it all. So, yeah, I just think there's that balance to be had there. I think sometimes life has to slap individuals in the face for them to think about this stuff and have certain realizations. But you know, it's best to learn from other people. It doesn't mean you take on board every single thing.
Yeah, sure.
Right? But if you listen to people who are accomplished, who are older, who are wiser, who have done things, even listen to people who have failed in various aspects, right? And see, okay, what went wrong, or how can I avoid, right? Look at someone who's 20, 30 years older than you, who's got a life that looks like something you really want, and they're very content and whatever, and see the path they took. Look at 100 people like that, see what path they took, and then look at another 100 people who you're like, I absolutely do not want to be like that man or that woman.
Yeah.
And you see all the mistakes they're made, and instead of you going out and being a knucklehead and doing all the same nonsense that they did, it's like learn from it and just go, okay, those are the things to avoid. Those are the pitfalls not to fall into, and these are the things to aspire towards, and that's how to achieve it.
I totally get that. If you were to put that into a rhyme verse, it would go something like, older, wiser, don't drink Budweiser, question everything from Pfizer.
Hey, bars. Dimitri is a rapper.
Feel free to steal that. Zuby, what's one piece of advice we're going to wrap on this, man? There's going to be some young dudes, maybe some young ladies listening to this, and they're just thinking, you know, I wish, because for me, like, I think about this, like, I wish I had role models on Twitter growing up. We didn't have Twitter. I wish I had somebody I could look on YouTube and just learn a little bit about masculinity and how to make myself better, you know? And I think for a lot of young guys, it's more about how do I make myself more attractive to ladies? And really, all of that just comes back to bettering yourself. Yeah. And we don't always know what the right thing is, because we get advice from people that a lot of times want to harm us with their advice because they've made bad choices and they just want to validate their own choices that they've made. So they give stupid advice. Yes. What's something that you want to tell the young guys listening to this that you would wish you had heard and you had known when you were 18, 19 years old?
Yeah. I'm blessed in that I did get, you know, I've got fantastic parents, God bless them, and they did instill a lot of wonderful stuff in me. I would say to a young person out there is, it almost sounds a little cliche, but like invest in yourself. Have an investment mindset. When I say investment, I don't just mean money, but be constantly and consistently investing yourself in becoming better at various aspects, getting more knowledge, building your skills, getting better at communicating with people, working on something that you can earn money from, taking care of your body, if you can learn another language or some skills, whatever it is, anything that just makes you better, whether you're a man or a woman. We live in this society where, you know, I think women are hit with this message more than young men are. I think young men do get, it's hard for a man to stay delusional because life slaps you
life
around.
Will just
life slaps you around too much, right? But I think there's this attitude of, number one, that the entitlement of like the world owes you something. Right. The world doesn't owe you jack. People don't owe you anything. And then also the idea that you're just optimal the way you are, right? So people have all these problems and issues, and they want everyone else to coddle and accept and even celebrate all their problems rather than them working on them, right? So someone can be having very bad outcomes in various aspects of their life.
Right, because we're like, oh, you're a victim, congratulations. It's like, stop saying that. Yeah. You're a victim, stop being a victim is a better, more constructive.
Like if you're fat, lose weight.
Right, obviously.
I will tell you straight up, right? I'm not pushing fat acceptance, body positivity, healthy at any size. It's all bullcrap. No, get in shape, take care of yourself.
That's like saying if you smell bad, don't shower. Go, kid, you smell terrible.
It's horrible, right?
It's like, no, dude, shower.
If you're a brokey, if you've got no money, build some skills.
Yep.
Make some money, like do it, right? If you're badly groomed or your hygiene is bad, like sort yourself out, right? If you're stupid, learn. If you're out of shape, get in shape. If you're whatever you can, like you're not going to be able to maximize absolutely everything. But if you're 18 years old and you work on these, literally by the time you're 25, let alone 30, let alone 35, if you just get yourself in the gym, you're reading books consistently, you're learning from smart people, you're building your network, you're doing this, that's all you got to do. That's all you got to do, and you can't rush the process. Just do it day in, day out, and literally within 5 years, let alone 10, you're going to be competing against the people who are doing none of it. There's going to be people who are doing none of that, right? They're just spending that time 10 years later. They've gone from 18 to 28, and they're basically the same person.
Yes.
Apart from they're in even worse shape. And then you'll have another person who invested in themselves, and by 28, they're now just like going to be a rocket. Like they're just cool. You've got all these decades ahead of you, and you keep that mindset going. And that's why, that's why they have that thing of, the people always complain, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. There's this concept, the Matthew principle, where it's like success breeds more success.
Correct, and sure does.
Success breeds more
does.
success.
Yeah.
And another thing, I'm having too many points, but my brain is going. Another thing is I also say is, be kind. I think kindness is so underrated. And I think that sometimes when people are very ambitious and whatever, people have this idea, you gotta like, the world is competitive in a way, but you don't need to be a jerk to win. You don't need to be cutthroat. You don't need to like attack. Like you should be aware that there are people who are out there like that and know how to guard against it.
Yes.
But if you're kind and you're polite and you treat people well and you talk to people with respect, you're gonna you'll draw so many people to you in so many positive ways. It opens up so many doors and opportunities. If you go around, and I'd say especially in this day and age, because long gone is the time where you can be like nice on camera or in public, and then be a dirtbag in private. It's like that will come to the fore, right? Especially if you become like a public figure or you're prominent or whatever. If you're nasty to people behind the scenes and you're mistreating people, like that will come out there. So you should be kind to people because it's the right thing to be kind to people.
Right.
But you should also be aware that from even a strategic perspective. Why burn random bridges with people? Why go out and just be abrasive and whatever? I even feel this when people, when I'm on social media, and you have these people who go around on Twitter and whatever, and like they get blocked by people, right? So they're going and they're attacking public figures and they're attacking this person, and they're like, haha, so and so blocked me. I'm like, you're a freaking idiot. You just burned a bridge permanently with someone who you potentially could have learn something from, who you could have gained something from, right? Instead of just being like,
That's a weird flex, right?
It's
like somebody successful doesn't like me. It's like, that's a weird flex. Wouldn't you want those people to like you?
Yeah, it's like, well done. I've been blocked by 50 people who I potentially could have learned something from.
Look at all these women that won't take my call anymore. It's like, dude, that's not how you measure that.
No, it's very silly. It's very silly to burn bridges unnecessarily or just be rude and abrasive and nasty to people. Just be out there, spread good energy. And it will come back to you, and it will multiply.
Guys, you heard it here. Zuby, if you want to research Zuby, what's your Twitter handle?
@ZubyMusic.
@ZubyMusic. Check him out, subscribe, and I appreciate your time.
No doubt, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we're good.